This week, I modeled a low-poly sea bunny. Let's take a look in Blender. Sea bunny has been one of my most requested models for a really long time. I modeled a leaf sheep sometime last year. Leaf sheep and sea bunny are both types of sea slugs or nudibranches, so it's all related. But sea bunny has been requested so many times over the last year, and I love sea bunnies. I always did. I think I just put off modeling a sea bunny because they're so simple looking. Like, they're just a little blob with their little bunny ear rhinophores. I knew that the shape was so simple that it was gonna be really hard for no reason at all. So I kind of put off modeling it for like a year. But that's all history. Sea bunny is right here before us. Not yet, but on his way to being right before us. You can see I had like 2 early attempts at the model, and the biggest problem was that I hadn't taken any time to actually look at what a sea bunny actually looked like. Like, I just had a vague sea bunny concept swirling around in my mind, and I was like, oh, this model is going to be so easy / really hard. They're just a little blob with bunny ears, right? No, I needed to go look at actual references, and just figure out what the silhouette actually looks like. And then once I actually took the time to look at a diagram, read a little bit about them, it was not so bad. Like, you can see now, this was right after I went to, I think it was like a diving website of some kind, maybe a scuba website, but they had lots of writing. They had a web page. They had one page about sea slugs and different types and, just what they are and everything. And I read that, and I encountered the most whimsical, adorable cookie banner disclaimer pop-up thing ever. How wonderful is that? But more importantly, I read about sea slugs, and the first most helpful thing that I read about them that improved the model right away was understanding that sea slugs have a foot on the underside of their body, and it's not like a foot like what we have, of course, the very cursed sea bunny walking around with 2 legs and feet, but they have a foot kind of like, I think, snails. I think the underside of their body is also called a foot. It's just how they get around, basically. And once I understood that, I was like, okay, first problem is that the underside of my model needs to be pretty much flush to the ground. And in earlier versions, it was so cylindrical that it wouldn't have made sense. Like, he wouldn't have been attached to the ground, if that makes sense, via the foot of the sea slug, the way sea bunny should be. So that was the first most helpful thing. And then just really taking like 1 second to sketch a sea bunny. Here's my wonderful sea bunny sketch, as you can see. I am an illustrator, obviously, but just making a super simple sketch of what a sea bunny actually looks like, just understanding the overall shape of the body. The head should be kind of sloped, the tail it's not a tail, but the other end of the body that's not the sea bunny's head, sloped off even more so, even a longer taper. They're very slug-like, they're sea slugs. And then you can see here, I'm modeling the rhinophores, which are the sea bunny's quote-unquote bunny ears. Rhinophores are actually, they're a type of, I remember reading, they're a type of sensory organ, and they use them, they're able to sense different chemicals in the water column. So they're able to use their rhinophores to detect where food is, or where where other sea bunnies are. Like, if they were looking for a little sea bunny mate, they would be able to find them via their rhinophores. So I'm modeling them here. They were super easy to extrude out. In the earliest versions of the model, I tried to just add a little cube, make it separate meshes. That did not work at all. Not totally sure why, but it just didn't work out. They need to be attached. You can see when you look at the reference photos that the rhinophores are clearly attached right to the body, and I don't know, there was just something disquieting about trying to make them out of separate mesh. It just looked completely wrong. So now you can see I'm moving on to the tail end of our sea bunny here. This little area that I'm working on right now is like the little bunny tail of theirs. It's actually their external gills. So the sea bunny, unlike a land bunny, uses their little tail area to breathe in the water. These are their gills. So you can see to make the actual external gills, I just modeled one little gill from a plane. There's all kinds of things going wrong on screen as I talk my way through this. The idea was, I was like, oh, this will be so easy. I'll just model one, and I just want it to be a bunch of the same shape repeated in a circle. So you know what? I'll just use an array modifier to follow a curve. Super simple. And normally it would have been, I don't know what happened, but my brain just like completely forgot how to make that work for some reason. And it probably would have been really easy to fix, like one Google search away, but it sounded like too much work at the moment. So I decided to just duplicate everything numerous times instead and arrange it in a little circle, and it worked out fine. So the next thing for the external gills here was, originally you could see, so there's an outline now, there's a gray outline that matches the outline of the external gills with the outline of the sea bunny's body. And originally, when I had started from just a flat plane, I just selected all the faces and pressed I to inset them, and then I just colored the faces the same color as the outline. I thought that would work out better originally because the gills look like a picket fence, such a picket fence shape. I don't know what's going on there. But originally I went with just a plane instead of, you know, an actual three-dimensional object like I'm working with here by the end, just because the gills are so thin, like they're so, like they sway around in the water a lot. They're really thin looking. They're almost kind of semi-transparent looking. There's not tons of videos of sea bunnies actually, so it's kind of hard to tell, but they look really, really thin and teensy tiny, so I thought a plane would be the best option. It was not. It looked very strange. Yeah, there's something very strange about, I don't know, like changing, I don't know, like the relative widths of different body parts too much. It just doesn't work out. So I had to just remodel the external gill individual pieces really quickly. It was very simple. I think I just actually used a solidify modifier with the original plane shape of the gills that I started with to make them, you know, more fully three-dimensional and everything. Super simple. And then I just added that outline modifier that I like to use. Outline helper, almost forgot how to speak. Hey! Outline helper, you can download it for free on Gumroad by Feline Entity. There's a wonderful little add-on, super handy. I'll link it in the description. Okay, so the next problem with the external gills was the shape. So you can see in the reference photos, they're very, I said before, they're very breezy. They move around, they're really lightweight, and they get moved around in the water a lot. So I found that the original shape, I said it was picket fence-like, and it's true. They looked like a picket fence. They looked very stiff, and they were too pointy at the tips, and they just need to have a softer, rounder kind of look. There's nothing, when you look at a sea bunny, there's nothing that looks pointy per se, so had to just round out the shape of the external gill pieces a little bit. And actually, I say there's nothing pointy about a sea bunny. So sea bunnies are technically toxic, so probably don't try to find one and grab it or anything. They're very tiny. They're roughly maybe the size, like less than the size of your fingertip, I think. But they are toxic, so I bring that up because I don't know if they're just like, I don't know if they can sting or bite anything, or if they're just toxic to predators that eat them maybe. I don't know. Okay, so you can see I've moved on, and I added a cube to my scene, and I just made a couple extrusions up on the z-axis going upward, and I scaled them down just to make kind of a rounded short sort of shape. And then as soon as I talked about it, I deleted it in the time lapse, and I started over with a cylinder, and I did the same thing, just extruding up on z and scaling down a little bit. What I'm adding here are, I think they're called papillae, feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm mispronouncing that. There is a massive chance that I am. But these little black dots or black nodules that you see on the reference photos of our friend Sea Bunny up there. So it kind of looks like there's just a few little black dots on the body, but actually the sea bunny is covered in tons and tons of these little nodules, these little papillae that are white and that are black, or you can see in the reference photos, some of them might be orange. Apparently sea bunnies, they can be white, they can be yellow. I saw a photo of one on iNaturalist that was like this really crazy orange but really red kind of color, and apparently they can even be green, but never seen a photo of a green one, so who knows. Okay, so I've moved on to UV unwrapping here. I knew at this stage I was still really going back and forth about the papillae problem. It looked strange when I tried to add the little black nodules using little pieces of mesh everywhere. I mean, that's like technically what it actually looks like on the sea bunny. They look like little protrusions, but it was uncanny valley. I don't know. It was like, it was just too much detail. It looked strange. I don't know. It didn't work out. So I thought maybe what I could do is kind of combine approaches. Like I thought, oh, I'll just texture paint. I'll do a really simple UV unwrap and then just texture paint on lots of little dots. And then I'll just add a couple of the separate piece of mesh type of papillae and that'll balance out okay. That also did not work. And I ultimately ended up just using texture painting to add the little black dots that you see all over the sea bunny. It's always a balancing act. Oh, you can see one more attempt to try and add the papillae to the actual geometry of our friend sea bunny. I thought maybe I could just select faces around the body, inset them, or extrude and scale them down, and then kind of move them out and away from the body, extrude again, scale down, all that stuff. It did not work. It was a noble attempt, but it was not working at all. Okay, you can see, I keep thinking, oh, okay, I thought maybe my problem was I needed to add like some white papillae. I was like, oh, it just needs to be balanced out. Like the actual sea bunny, it's covered in white and black little nodules. So maybe if I just add some little white ones mixed in, it'll all balance out. And I don't know, it just looked strange. It did not work the way that I thought it would. The texture painting on the front kind of looks like little eyes. Oh, and I learned sea bunnies actually do have eyes, but they're very, very tiny. So I don't think you can actually see them in photos. Oh, one more thing that I added for the external gills just there on the tail area of the sea bunny. I think what was missing from the tail was that it was just like a hollow circle of gills, and the actual sea bunny, you can see in the reference photos, it's just like a little forest of external gills. It's not hollow right in the middle. There are little external gills. It's just a big bunch of them all in that little area. So I just added a few more to the center of that initial ring of the external gills that I started with. And then I think I also, yeah, it looks like at this point I've also just kind of changed the shape and the size of the external gills a little bit. Yeah, you can see in the 360 window down there that some of them are a little bit longer, some are a little bit shorter. They're pointing in different directions a little bit. And I think that's a really important minor little detail for stuff like this. You just want to add a little bit of variety where you can, and it just makes it look so much more lifelike, I think. Okay, some very simple rigging toward the end of Project Sea Bunny. I knew that I wanted to be able to rig them because I knew I was going to make sticker designs for November's Sneep Snorp Club using this Sea Bunny model, and I just figured it would be nice if I could just have a little bit of rigging flexibility when I make those sticker designs. I always find it's so much easier to, of course, pose the model when they're actually rigged versus using lots of shape keys and lots of Control-Z to undo, which I've done very often. But yeah, super simple rig, just enough to make them dance on TikTok, as you do, the most important thing you can do with your 3D models. the rigging was really simple. Like, it's just a few bones, and then I'm sure I just used automatic weights. I think the ears, yeah, you can see when I click on the ear bones, they're influencing quite a lot of the head area that I don't want to move. So I just used the gradient tool with the strength set to 0, I think, and I just basically erased a lot of the influence that the ear bone had on the head and nose area, just to make sure nothing terrifying was happening when I used this rig. And here is the final 360 of low poly sea bunny. I think he turned out really cute. I'm really happy with this model. I'm glad I finally decided to make this one. Future sea slugs, possibly blue glaucus. I love a blue glaucus. I've wanted to model one forever, so hopefully soon. Right now, any free time that I have is spent on Project Moth VTuber. I got sick during the 2-week period that I specifically dedicated to finishing that project last month, so it is not done. Hopefully the end of this month though. But yeah, thank you to Sneep Snort Club members for making this video possible. As always, I appreciate y'all so much. See you later!